Your chance was stolen, it's none of my business. I'm just a supporting actress. Luo Wanning, as a canon fodder female supporting character in a Mary Sue female lead novel, has been a professional scapegoat for decades. The female lead accidentally killed a disciple of a big shot, and she went to take the blame. However, the female lead mistakenly poisoned the master, but she still went to take the blame. Until after her death, she realized that all of this was just a premeditation. As a canon fodder supporting actress, she could never compete for the female lead. Reborn again, Luo Wanning wiped her face. She couldn't snatch it, what about the others? From then on, a mysterious organization rose up on the Qianyun continent. It was clear what opportunities there were and how to obtain them, as long as you spent money. Keywords of the novel. The nun is very innocent with no pop-ups, the nun is very innocent with no pop-ups, the nun is very innocent with no pop-ups. Download the complete text, and the nun is very innocent with no pop-ups. Latest chapters for reading. Chapter 1. Rebirth, I turned out to be a supporting actress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Rebirth, I turned out to be a supporting actress. Black. It's so dark. Luo Wanning's consciousness was enveloped in darkness, with nothing around her. The only bright light was a glowing book. She struggled constantly, and a voice in the dark told her to get that book. I don't know how long it took, but Luo Wanning still didn't give up and struggled. In the end, she finally succeeded. At the moment of holding the book in her arms, Luo Wanning felt an unprecedented sense of peace of mind. The next second, the book turned into a golden light and entered Luo Wanning's consciousness. A huge message suddenly appeared in her mind, causing severe pain in her head. What's wrong with me? After a while, when the pain disappeared, Luo Wanning finally had time to organize the additional information in her mind. The protagonist in the book is named Yi Ruobing, a mutated ice spirit root with a cool temperament and beautiful appearance. Especially with luck, he is in a mess. When he goes out to pick up treasures, any spirit beast he buys has the bloodline of a divine beast, and even if he falls, he can find top-notch spirit stones. Surrounded by a group of beautiful men, he is surrounded. On the contrary, her senior sister did all the bad things, everyone shouted and beat her, and in the end, she was expelled from the sect. And Luo Wanning is the senior sister who everyone shouts and fights, but as a party involved, she knows that things are not like this. Although all those troubles were caused by Yi Ruobing, they always inexplicably fell on her in the end. She once tried to resist, but ended up being expelled from the sect. Now that she saw this book, Luo Wanning realized that she was actually a supporting actress. It turned out that no matter what she did, she couldn't match Yi Ruobing's smile in the eyes of others. After reading all the content, Luo Wanning closed her eyes in despair and her consciousness gradually fell into endless darkness. When she opened her eyes again, she suddenly felt a dazzling white light in front of her, and a force was constantly pulling her. Luo Wanning couldn't bear the pain and opened her mouth and burst into tears. Great, it's born, it's born. Luo Wanning opened her eyes and looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar person in front of her. Mother. Isn't my mother missing? How could it be here? Where is she? Just then, a tall man burst in and looked at his wife who had just given birth on the bed, with a hint of tenderness in his eyes. Wan Qing handed the newborn child to Luo Xiao and said softly, Xiaolang, look, this is our newborn child. Look at her, she looks so small. Luo Xiao looked at the little baby in the swaddling clothes, his eyes seemed to have endless tenderness, and it was a long time before he let out a faint Luo Wanning looked at her parents whom she had never met in her previous life, and an inexplicable sense of grievance surged in her heart. In her past life, she was fostered at a friend's house by her father since childhood. From memory onwards, she has been living there and has never seen her parents. Even though that friend was really kind to her, Luo Wanning was still an outsider who couldn't fit in, so she couldn't wait to leave the house after testing her spiritual roots. Before meeting the female lead Yi Ruobing, Luo Wanning was able to live a smooth life under the guidance of the Qiang Immortal Lord of Canyin sect. Thinking of this, she anxiously looked at her parents and opened her mouth, wanting them not to leave. In her past life, everyone said that her parents had died. Only when Uncle Chu told her that her parents were still alive when she grew up and became strong enough, could she go find them. Just before she could grow stronger, she died in the hands of her former classmates. She wanted to prevent her parents from leaving, but as a baby now, she couldn't speak and could only vent her dissatisfaction by crying. Xiaolang, do you see Ning'er crying so hard? She can't bear to let us leave, can she? Wan Qing held her newborn daughter, her eyes filled with love and reluctance. Luo Xiao held his wife in his arms and comforted her softly. Qing'er, I know you can't bear to part with her, but only in this way can our daughter grow up safely. Don't worry, the jade pendant I left for her can guide her to find us, and then our family of 3 can truly reunite. At this moment, Luo Wanning heard these words, and before she could react, she felt something cold and icy being placed in her swaddling clothes. She saw clearly what the jade pendant looked like. Isn't it the jade pendant of that woman from Chu Luo Luo? Luo Wanning remembered when she was a child, Chu Luo Luo had a jade pendant like this. The reason why she remembered it so clearly was because she was deeply attracted to it from the first moment she saw it. No wonder this jade pendant was originally a clue left by her parents. Later, for some reason, this jade pendant fell into the hands of Yi Ruobing. With her understanding of the woman Yi Ruobing, everything that could be favored by her was not simple. Just as she was stunned, Luo Wanning had already been transferred to another person's hand, and a familiar voice from her father could also be heard in her ear. Brother Chu, I'll leave the girl to you. Please treat her well in the future, Luo. Thank you very much. Chu Tianhao said in a deep voice, Brother Luo, don't worry. From now on, I will treat Ning'er as my own daughter. Luo Xiao nodded, then exchanged a glance with his wife and left without looking back. They were afraid that a slight hesitation would make them reluctant to leave anymore. Listening to the crying of the baby coming from behind, they could only choose to turn a blind eye. Luo Wanning cried bitterly, crying about her tragic life in her past life, crying that she had just seen her parents but had to part ways again. Does she have to walk the path of her past life again? No. Absolutely not. If so, what is the significance of her rebirth? At this moment, she touched the jade pendant in her swaddling clothes. As the book said, the female lead's chance cannot be taken away by any means, but this jade pendant originally belongs to her. Isn't it? Thinking that her father had just mentioned that this jade pendant was a magical tool, she used some sharp decorations on it to scratch her fingers, and fresh blood stained the jade pendant, instantly merging into Luo Wanning's body. Success. Seeing this, Luo Wanning couldn't help but show a shameless smile. You little doll, you just cried so badly and now you're laughing so happily. Did you think of something happy? But you little doll, probably don't know anything now. Being brought back to the Chu family again, Luo Wanning's mentality has changed. Even though she still doesn't plan to integrate into this family this time, after all, in this family, except for Uncle Chu, everyone else looks down on her. In her past life, there were even rumors that she was the illegitimate son of Chu Tianhao. However, as Luo Wanning grew up, there was no resemblance to Chu Tianhao in her whole body, which finally put an end to this rumor. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Don't Be Sisters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Don't Be Sisters. Before she had the ability to take care of herself, she still had to live in the Chu family and the jade pendant she had just received. Although she had already given her blood to recognize the owner, now she couldn't feel the existence of the jade pendant at all, as if it had never appeared before. Luo Wanning speculates that this may be related to her lack of cultivation. In the Qianyun continent, if a baby has a spiritual root after birth, the spiritual root in their body will not immediately develop completely. They need to wait until they are 5 years old to be tested by a spirit stone, so now Luo Wanning can only wait quietly. Even with spiritual roots, cultivation must take place step by step. Having experienced it for a lifetime, Luo Wanning knows the importance of laying a solid foundation. With a solid foundation, she can only go further on the path of cultivating immortality in the future. If she had known this truth back then, perhaps she wouldn't have had no strength to fight back against those people. For some reason, after being brought back to the Chu family, Luo Wanning was not handed over to Chu Tianhao's wife Chen for custody, but to his mother for custody. What she didn't know was that from the beginning of the previous life, she was also entrusted to the old lady. It was only because she cried day and night that she was entrusted to the Chen family, who had just given birth, for custody. The old lady took over the child, and Luo Wanning showed a smile in her swaddling clothes, immediately capturing the old man's heart. Oh my, where did this little treasure come from? If she could stay by the old lady's side smoothly, she wouldn't want to go to Chen's place to provoke trouble. Seeing that her plan was successful, Luo Wanning immediately smiled even happier. No wonder Yi Ruobing loves to smile so much. It turns out that sometimes, a smile can invisibly change many things, so she needs to smile more in the future. So, Luo Wanning stayed with the old lady smoothly for 3 years. During these 3 years, Luo Wanning experienced a family relationship that she had never experienced before in her past life. She could feel that the old lady was treating her like a granddaughter in pain. Since learning to walk, Luo Wanning has been consciously exercising herself. Although she is not yet able to practice, in her past life, she once obtained a technique to exercise her spiritual consciousness in a secret realm. This was one of the opportunities she gained, but it was a bit late to obtain this technique. Because she was repeatedly snatched by Yi Ruobing for no reason at that time, she did not tell anyone about the discovery of the secret script, which was why she managed to preserve this cultivation technique. So in recent years, in order to cultivate this skill, Luo Wanning has been resting and sleeping most of the time every day. For this reason, the old lady even called a doctor to see if she was sick. How could a child sleep so well? Grandmother. After finishing a day of cultivation, Luo Wanning came to the old lady's room and showed her signature smile. Ning'er is here. Coincidentally, Luo said she wants to go out for a stroll. Grandmother is getting older, why don't you accompany her? Luo Wanning looked at Chu Luo frowning beside her and nodded, okay. Since half a year ago, the old lady's health has been deteriorating, and even after consuming countless precious medicinal herbs, her health has not improved. Luo Wanning, who was reborn, knew that according to the development trajectory of her previous life, the old lady only had 2 months left. In recent years, she has also tried to change the fate of others, but she found that some things are difficult to change, such as the death of the old lady. Perhaps there will be a way in the cultivation world, but unfortunately, this is the mortal world. There was no cultivator in the entire Tianqing city, so Luo Wanning couldn't figure out how Chu Tianhao and Uncle Chu met his father, and the two of them looked very familiar. As he walked out of the room, Chu Luo immediately changed his face and looked at Luo Wanning with a condescending expression. She had seen such a look countless times in her past life, but now she no longer cares. Luo Wanning, I tell you that I would not regard you as my sisters even if Grandma said something. I know, Luo Wanning nodded nonchalantly, but she turned her eyes. She didn't want to be a sisters with Chu Luo. I was afraid she would not kill her. If Luo Wanning is a canon fodder female supporting character who specifically carries the blame for the female lead in the book, then Chu Luo is truly a vicious female supporting character. Find fault with Yi Ruobing, fight against Yi Ruobing for a man, speak ill of him behind his back, administer medicine, and stab him in the back. Each one of them bounces around Yi Ruobing's bottom line. Such a person, of course, the farther the better, when sisters. It's best not to even be a familiar stranger. However, Chu Luo also has such capital, after all, her water spirit roots are only 10% pure, even better than the talent of the female lead. Especially since water and ice have the same origin, before the emergence of Yi Ruobing, Chu Luo was the most talented and popular female disciple in the Canyin sect. The market in Tianqing City is very lively, selling fruits and snacks, everything. In her past life, Luo Wanning rarely went out due to being under someone else's care. Over time, she also kept a distance from such a bustling place. However, after being reborn, everything was different. Chu Luo saw Luo Wanning picking gifts and said disdainfully, "Flatterer." Then he left without looking back, without any intention of waiting. However, Luo Wanning couldn't help but hope for her like this. In her past life, every time she bought something, as long as Chu Luo was by her side, she would definitely mock and ridicule her. Luo Wanning was held in the arms of a maid and came to a stall. She stopped and said, "How much does this cost?" She pointed to a white bracelet among a pile of things and said, 3 copper coins, no bargaining. If you want them, take them away. If you don't want them, don't disturb my business. Perhaps because Luo Wanning is a child who still needs to be hugged by adults when going out, the vendor's tone carries a hint of impatience. "I'll take it." Luo Wanning threw 3 copper coins to the vendor and then picked up a white bracelet to wear in her hand. Seeing her so cheerful, the vendor immediately put on a smiling face, regretting that the price had just been lowered. "Miss, I have other beautiful bracelets here. If you like them, I can sell them to you at a cheaper price." "No need." After getting what she wanted, Luo Wanning let the maid hold her and leave. On the way back, Luo Wanning looked at the bracelet in her hand. Although she didn't know how the person got it, her eyesight showed at a glance that the bracelet was a magical tool, and it could be used without spiritual energy. This kind of magical tool that can be activated without spiritual energy was invented by a master cultivator for his beloved but unable to cultivate younger generation. Returning to the Chu family, Chu Luo had indeed returned long ago. First, he gave the bought gift to the old lady, and then he went back to his room to study the magical tools in his hand. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Being a senior sister is better than being a senior sister. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Being a senior sister is better than being a senior sister. Dropping blood onto the bracelet, the originally white bracelet began to change, with cracks gradually appearing on the surface. Something fell off the surface, revealing the original appearance of the bracelet. About a quarter of an hour later, the original bracelet had turned into a silver whip that Luo Wanning held in his hand, just the right size. The discovery of the bracelet was an accident, and it also means that as long as there is nothing mentioned in the book that does not belong to the female lead, she can take it. And there are also those opportunities that she has already obtained, some that she needs to personally retrieve after having enough strength, some that she cannot use, or some martial art secrets that she has already memorized, so there is no need to bother to go there again. And perhaps she can use these messages to do other things, not only these, but also the opportunities mentioned in the book. She cannot touch them, but it doesn't mean that others cannot touch them. Thinking of this, Luo Wanning suddenly realized that she had discovered a path to getting rich. However, before that, she still needs to plan carefully. She needs to grow up a little longer in the future. Otherwise, even if the news is released, no one will believe it. If it causes unnecessary suspicion, it will be even more counterproductive. After having this idea, Luo Wanning stopped practicing and spent all her time organizing the information in the book, except for being by the old lady's side every day. Combining it with her own memories, she organized a book full of opportunities, most of which belonged to the female lead Yi Ruobing, and some were from those admirers around her. For the culprits who caused her death in her past life, Luo Wanning certainly wouldn't show mercy. The only thing left was some opportunities she knew or heard about, and all she had to do was write a book full of them. She carefully stored the book. These were all her future wealth codes. It can be said that if the content of this book leaked out, it would definitely cause a bloody storm in the entire Qianyun continent. Thinking this way, the book that was originally in her hands suddenly disappeared, but Luo Wanning had already taken it for granted. As she grew up, she could already feel the disappearing jade pendant, and if she guessed correctly, it should be a high-end storage space. As long as her mind is strong enough, she can occasionally put in some things. Of course, without cultivation, the things she puts in cannot be taken out, but now Luo Wanning doesn't care about this. Storage space is a very rare existence in Qianyan continent. A 1 cubic meter storage space was sold for a sky-high price at the auction. As for the storage space in Luo Wanning's hand, it can only be said to be very large. And storage space and storage bags are two completely different things, the former is naturally more advanced. The most important ability of storage space is that its internal time stops, so some precious spiritual medicines are placed inside, and the medicinal properties will not disappear with the passage of time. The storage bag cannot achieve this. In her previous life, even until her death, Luo Wanning was unable to have her own storage space. On the contrary, the female protagonist Yi Ruobing had more than one storage space on her body as far as she knew. And each space is not small, all of it was picked up by her. The precious storage space in someone else's place has actually become a cabbage price in her place. 2 months later, the old lady passed away without any accidents. Looking at the old lady who had taken care of her for 3 years, even though she had anticipated it earlier, Luo Wanning's heart seemed to be pricked by a needle, and hot tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. "Miss Ning, the old lady has something for me to hand over to you." Luo Wanning looked at the thing handed over to her, and the person said it was a dowry prepared by the old lady before her death, a full 1 million taels of silver notes, and some cloth and jewelry. Looking at these things, Luo Wanning's emotions were extremely complicated. She always had a knot in her heart towards the Chu family, but this cannot deny that the old lady was kind to her. 2 more years later, Luo Wanning is already 5 years old. According to her past life memories, today will be a turning point in her destiny. Sanyin sect comes to the mortal world once every 10 years to search for children with cultivation talents to enter Sanyin sect. In this life, Luo Wanning already knew that her future spiritual root would be a mutated wind spiritual root, but she did not plan to enter the Sanyin sect at this time. She remembers very clearly that after being tested for the mutated wind spirit root, she was taken back to Sanyin sect to worship Qiang Immortal Master as her teacher. 5 years later, Qiang Immortal Master picked up a woman with amnesia from outside and took her as a disciple, naming her Yi Ruobing. When Yi Ruobing apprenticed, he was already in his 20s, but due to his high talent, he quickly caught up with his peers. In this life, she had a premonition that she would likely become a disciple of the Qiang Immortal Lord, but this time, she had no intention of becoming Yi Ruobing's senior sister. Being called sister by a woman who is more than 10 years older than herself every day is a strange feeling. She should just be a little sister obediently, but it would be even better if she could change her master. Master is a good master, of course, without bias. Bian Ning, today is the day when Sanyin sect came to Tianqing City to recruit disciples. Later, you and Chu Chu will try it together. Your parents are both cultivators, and you should also have spiritual roots. Early in the morning, Chu Tianhao came eagerly to find Luo Wanning. For ordinary people, cultivators are no different from legendary immortals. Although Chu Tianhao himself has no cultivation and is an ordinary person, he has 2 immortal friends, which makes him more aware of the benefits of cultivating immortals. Luo Wanning pretended to be happy, but silently apologized in her heart. She won't go to this spiritual root test, not only won't go, but today is still the day she leaves. Uncle Chu, can I go find my parents after cultivating immortality? Luo Wanning asked innocently. Chu Tianhao touched Luo Wanning's furry head and said, "Yes, once you become a fairy, you can go." "That's great, I'm going." Luo Wanning and Chu Luo were taken to the place where the spiritual roots were being tested, and by this time, there was already a grand display of dragons. Chu Luo looked at so many people in front of her, her small face wrinkled together. If it had been in the past, she would have thrown a tantrum long ago. At this moment, several people slowly fell from the sky, causing the people below to emit waves of envy. Dad, can this be the same for Luo in the future? Chu Luo shook Chu Tianhao's sleeve and said. It depends on fate. Due to the appearance of these few people, the originally orderly crowd suddenly became chaotic. Everyone wanted their child to be the first to test, and Luo Wanning took this opportunity to separate from the Chu family father and daughter. Before leaving, Luo Wanning had already placed the prepared letter in the room. The letter stated that she was leaving to search for her parents, which is not a lie. After all, she was really cultivating immortality to find her parents. Due to their small size, they can quickly navigate through crowds and quickly move away from them. Looking at the chaotic crowd behind her, I still remember that the same scene happened in the previous life. In the previous life, she couldn't wait to leave here, but this life is still like this. The only difference is that in the previous life, she fled, but in this life, she left voluntarily. Watching Chu Tianhao looking for her in the crowd with a panicked expression, he silently said sorry in his heart. Although there was no need to follow the people of Zhangyan's sect to the cultivation world, Luo Wanning had to set off on her own to reach the cultivation world. Since the age of 5, she has been able to sense the existence of spiritual roots, but due to the scarcity of spiritual energy in the mortal world, she has been unable to enter the refining phase for a long time. End of this chapter. Chapter 4 Attention. Mermaids appear. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 5. Forced to become the owner of mermaids. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Forced to become the owner of mermaids, how heartless. If it weren't for me, you little thing would have starved to death long ago, but when you woke up, you didn't even say, thank you. It's just that I'm meddling in my business. Upon hearing the words of Ming Fuxin, Luo Wanning was taken aback. She then realized that she had been immersed in cultivation for so long, as if she had not really felt hungry. After reaching a certain level of cultivation, cultivators can achieve complete valley breaking. She originally thought it was due to the water in the pool, thank you. Anyway, she still knows that this mermaid has helped her and is willing to repay her kindness. I wasted 5 years here for you, can you just say thank you and it's over? The puzzled look in my eyes suddenly became dangerous. Seeing this, Luo Wanning's temper also rose. It's not that I begged you, and I've already said thank you. What do you want from me? If you don't want money, if you want life, I can't beat you anyway. After speaking, he closed his eyes with a look of death on his face, giving off a feeling of being torn apart. Ha ha ha, it's interesting. I don't want your money or destiny, but I have raised you for 5 years. As the human race has a saying, a drop of water's kindness, a gushing spring repays you. You raised me for 50 years, isn't that excessive? It's not excessive, it's divided. Luo Wanning opened her eyes and looked at the man in front of her with a skeptical expression, as if she wanted to see from his long and angry face what kind of scheming and trickery this person was up to. With his cultivation, he wanted her to take care of him. If I refuse, will you kill me? In theory, it will, said the puzzled and gentle smile on his face. The words of rejection reached the edge of her mouth and she swallowed them back. Okay, I'll keep it. It's just a snake, I'll keep it. It's better to live than to die, and this man looks very strong. With him by his side, he can even be a bodyguard. It seems like she has made a profit. It's not a snake, it's a shark, emphasized Ming Fuxin. Okay, it's a shark, my name is Luo Wanning. Please give me more guidance in the future. After treating Ming Fuxin as a potential bodyguard, the previous frustration was instantly cleared. Ming Guoxin, the name of this seat. Ming Guoxin said lazily. I'm confused, this name sounds really nice, Luo Wanning muttered. I want to leave here now. Do you know how to leave? As soon as the words fell, the next second, Luo Wanning's body appeared outside, and the figure of the confused heart had also disappeared. Luo Wanning searched everywhere but couldn't find a trace. No need to search, this seed is here. The voice of Ming Fuxin came from Luo Wanning's ear. She had an earring on top of her ear at some point, which was very similar in color and shape to Ming Fuxin's tail. Previously, every appearance of this seat would cause unnecessary trouble. Thinking of the face of Ming Fuxin, walking casually on the street can indeed cause a lot of trouble. Just mermaid, she had never heard of such a spirit beast in her past life, let alone being able to speak human words. She was no different from humans and could even change her form at will. In her past life, even the most powerful divine beast of Yi Ruobing, the white tiger, could only change its body shape, let alone speak human words. Can it be said that the mysterious mind is even more powerful than a divine beast? Thinking of this, she unconsciously touched the earring on her left ear. Stop, don't touch this seat casually. If you don't touch it, then don't touch it, you stingy guy, Luo Wanning said in frustration. Her fingers accidentally brushed over her clothes, and she suddenly realized that her clothes were no longer the one she had been wearing before. However, when I think about it, she was only 5 years old when she jumped off the cliff. Now that 5 years have passed, she naturally can't wear that dress, and as for the person who changed her clothes, I don't need to think about who it is. Luo Wanning touched the material of the clothes on her body, light as chiffon, smooth as silk, with unique and beautiful patterns, which made her fall in love with the clothes in an instant. After all, there is no girl who doesn't love beauty. And she just came out of the water, and surprisingly, the clothes were not soaked at all. Good thing. You have a good eye, our shark silk is comparable to those common things. There was a hint of pride in the puzzled voice. Yes, yes, you're the best, Luo Wanning said sincerely. The mysterious heart let out a proud and coquettish snort. I'm going to the little secret realm next. It's none of our business where you're going. Our seat is only responsible for eating, and the rest of the time you go wherever you like. Luo Wanning took a deep breath and said, what I mean is that only cultivators below the foundation are allowed to enter the small secret realm. You. Ming Fuxin gained cultivation, and she was really afraid of taking him into the small secret realm, which would collapse directly. I was originally worried about this. Don't worry, this seat will enter a dormant state and it won't affect you, said Ming Fuxin in a tone that was easy to speak. Upon hearing the answer from Ming Fuxin, Luo Wanning breathed a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. After discussing with Ming Fuxin, she sat on the Baiyun aircraft and flew south for 3 days before finally seeing the shadow of the town. After flying for so long, I finally saw someone, Luo Wanning cheered out. Although only 10 years old, due to soaking in the pool water for 5 years, my body has developed very well. Ignoring the immaturity on my face, some people believe that my tall figure is still 13 or 14 years old. Arriving outside the city, I saw on the plaque on the city gate that dragons and phoenixes danced and wrote a few big characters. Falling Phoenix City. It is said that Luofeng City is the place where the phoenix fell, which is why it is named. Only Luo Wanning knows that this legend is true because Yi Ruobing obtained a phoenix egg here. However, after hatching, Yi Ruobing disliked the black feathers of the phoenix and gave it to a pursuer, successfully harvesting a licking dog. Luo Wanning knew where the phoenix egg was now, and it was false to say she couldn't move it. However, compared to the phoenix egg, she cherished her little life even more. Speaking of which, later in the novel, it was said that the phoenix was not a serious phoenix, but a fallen god phoenix. It was a phoenix egg that became infected with blood during hatching and became a fallen god phoenix. It was a spiritual beast that would easily devour its master. If it weren't for Yi Ruobing's protagonist aura, the fallen god phoenix could have annihilated her and her harems. Luo Wanning believed that she did not have the charm to tame the fallen phoenix, let alone now it was not the time for its birth. The most important thing now was the little secret realm. In her past life, the small secret realm was opened, and as the only disciple of Qiang Immortal Lord who was still in the Qi refining stage, she naturally obtained a spot. However, after she emerged from the secret realm, she was told that she had an additional junior sister, and her senior brother who usually took good care of her became unusually indifferent. Originally, this was not a big deal. No one had a rule that anyone had to revolve around her, but for some reason, Luo Wanning greeted everyone with a smiling face, except for her, with a sweet sword in her mouth and a hidden sword in her smile. In the end, she was pursued and fell due to her false accusations. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. I endorse myself. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. I endorse myself. After paying the entry fee, Luo Wanning smoothly entered Luofeng City. It is recorded in ancient books that the predecessor of Luofeng City was the ancient ruins Wudong Mountain, which was the gathering place of the Phoenix family. Later, several big wars took place on the Thousand Clouds continent, which made the spirit of the continent suddenly decreased, and various divine animals disappeared one after another. Finally, Wudong Mountain was changed into Luofeng City. After all, there is no phoenix. What should we do with Wudong Mountain? According to time calculations, the opening time of the small secret realm is about a month, and the distance between Luofeng City and the small secret realm is about 3 cities. 1 month should be enough for her to arrive. Thinking of the book she had written, Luo Wanning felt that there might be something else she could do before leaving. In her past life, Luo Wanning had come to Luofeng City before, so she was quite familiar with it. She first found a hidden corner, changed into ordinary clothes, blackened her face, and had thick eyebrows. At first glance, she looked like a teenager with some developmental abnormalities. Subsequently, rumors about the divine beast Phoenix were spread throughout the city of Luofeng. As is well known, Luofeng City is the place where the Phoenix fell, so it is reasonable to have some relics about the Phoenix hidden here. Even if no one initially believed it, 1 passed it on to 2, and 2 passed it on to 4. Gradually, more people knew about it, and even if it was fake, it eventually became true. Moreover, Luo Wanning only mentioned rumors about the Phoenix, without elaborating on the rest. As for whether the Phoenix egg will be discovered in advance, she doesn't have to worry at all. Firstly, the location of the Phoenix egg is indeed hidden, and secondly, there are powerful prohibitions placed around it. Unless it's time, it's impossible to forcibly open it. The reason why Luo Wanning did this is also to promote her own Xiaoyao Pavilion, although so far, the main members of Xiaoyao Pavilion are only her and a fish. But it's not a big problem. After she successfully emerges from the small secret realm, even if she is the only one, she can still promote the Xiaoyao Pavilion. Moreover, from the beginning, Luo Wanning's positioning of the Xiaoyao Pavilion was not about strength, but rather a mysterious intelligence dealer. She thanked the female Li Ruobing for wandering around the Qianyun continent, allowing her to find countless secrets. How did you know about the news of Phoenix's trail in Luofeng City? Luo Wanning's actions cannot be concealed from the mind. He is very curious about why a 10-year-old girl would be so confident about this matter. Confidentiality. She let out a proud and coquettish snort as she learned to be confused. The next day, the rumors were showing signs of escalating. Apart from Phoenix, which everyone was interested in, the most frequently mentioned name was Xiaoyao Pavilion. What exactly is Xiaoyao Pavilion? I've never heard of it before. Could it be some hidden sect? It is said that they have information about the Phoenix in their hands, and they do not know if it is true or false. It should be fake. My family has lived here for generations, not to mention the Phoenix, I haven't even discovered a single hair. Don't be afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of the unexpected. I heard that it was because a traitor emerged from the Xiaoyao Pavilion and fled to our Luofeng City. He was seriously injured and unwilling to die like this, so he spread this news. Listening to these people's discussions, the smile on Luo Wanning's face became even more brilliant. Plan successful. After leaving Luofeng City, Luo Wanning did not repeat the old tricks in the other 3 cities. Doing too much of this kind of thing would appear too fake, and it is easy to be detected by others. She still knows the truth that too much is better than too little. Sometimes, the more vague the information, the more people will believe that it is true. However, she can still achieve this by spreading the rumors of Luo Feng City to a larger scale. Just as Luo Wanning was preparing to dress up again, a voice of confusion and disgust rang in her ear. It's really ugly. Mermaids like to pursue beautiful things, which is their nature. In their eyes, ugliness is original sin. If Luo Wan had looked a bit ugly when she was under the cliff, she would have gone to reincarnation long ago. Luo Wanning rolled her eyes and said, I don't want to either. Aren't you afraid of being recognized? There are those spells that can change her appearance, but they consume too much spiritual power. She can't even afford them. She hasn't said a few words yet, and she's showing her true colors. It's really troublesome. Here you are. Now immediately wash off those unsightly dirt on your face for me. The next second, a blue mask appeared in her hand. The mask was blue, with scales and patterns similar to those on the tail of the mysterious heart. It felt icy and cool to the touch, even to the touch. How should this be used? Luo Wanning played with the mask in her palm, her eyes filled with love. Wear it on your face and imagine what you want to look like. Luo Wan nodded and said, don't you need to inject spiritual power? Upon hearing these words, Ming confused snorted disdainfully and said, the magical tool refined in this place can be used without spiritual power, and as long as you don't say it, no one will recognize it. Really? I really love you so much in my confused heart. This mask simply solved her urgent need. Luo Wanning cheered and put the mask on her face. The mask seemed to disappear when it touched her skin, and her appearance began to change. In no time, she transformed from a little beauty to a plain and ordinary public face, which she couldn't even find in the crowd. She exposed several places with high traffic on her face, spreading the news one by one. At first, these people didn't believe it, but Luo Wanning looked indifferent whether you believed it or not, which actually increased the suspicion in their hearts. After finishing all of this, Luo Wanning finally arrived at the location of the small secret realm, where many scattered cultivators had gathered. She observed the surroundings and did not see any disciples of the sect, speculating that these people should not have arrived yet. The little secret realm only opens once every 20 years, and disciples of the sect must either have a good master or compete for a spot based on their own strength. Those who have neither background nor strength can still enter, but they have to blend in with this group of casual cultivators, and personal safety is a big issue. In her past life, she had encountered a disciple of a sect who secretly ran out and infiltrated a small secret realm in casual cultivation because he had not obtained a spot in the sect. As a result, he was stabbed in the back by a teammate for a share of spiritual fruit. At night, mysterious heart, have you slept yet? After a long time, there was no response. Remembering the thing that Ming Fuxin had said before that he would enter sleep, Luo Wanning thought he had already entered sleep. Just as she was about to give up, a lazy voice rang out, what's going on? It's nothing, it's just a bit boring. I want to talk to you. The figure with a confused heart suddenly appeared next to Luo Wanning, with a slight smile in her voice. Little guy is afraid of the dark. How did you come out? Aren't you afraid of being discovered? Luo Wanning's gaze fell on the tail of the mermaid that shone brightly in the moonlight. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Opening the Small Secret Realm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Opening the Small Secret Realm, just rely on them. You haven't answered my question yet, said Ming with disdain. Luo Wanning was stunned for a moment, then shook her head and said, I'm not afraid of the dark. But now the quiet environment around her reminded her of the days when she was beaten and fled by everyone in her past life. The feeling of fear and helplessness, she thought she had forgotten. It seemed that she could feel the helpless and wandering aura emanating from Luo Wanning's body, and her perplexed heart held her tightly in her arms. The long blue fish tail surrounded her like countless days and nights before. Surrounded by the familiar aura, Luo Wanning gradually recovered and unknowingly fell asleep. Seeing this, Mingpushan's slender fingers ran over her black hair and sighed helplessly, "At a young age, my mind is heavy." Mermaids are very sensitive to emotional perception, so lying to mermaids is a very unwise choice. Even if it is just a momentary restlessness, he can easily detect it. The next day, Luo Wanning was awakened by a loud noise. When she opened her eyes, her perplexed heart had already disappeared. Looking in the direction of the sound, I saw a huge spiritual boat descending from the sky, followed by more than a dozen disciples wearing the same attire walking down from the boat. Subsequently, several more spiritual boats also arrived one after another. Since the emergence of these disciples from the sect, Sanshio has automatically cleared a space for them, as if there is a clear dividing line between the two, where the well water does not invade the river. Although they are both cultivators of immortality, the relationship between Sanshio and the disciples of the sect is not harmonious. Simply put, they do not like each other. She used to stand on the side of the sect, but now she's mixed up in the team of scattered cultivators. In the team of Tsanyan's sect, Luo Wanning also saw an unexpected person. Chu Luoluo. In the previous life, Chu Luoluo was punished by her master for making mistakes and missed out on this small secret realm. It seems that in this life, she did not choose to go to the Tsanyan sect, which ultimately changed some things. At this point, her cultivation has reached the 10th level of Qi cultivation. After all, her talent is there. If she does not deliberately pursue perfect foundation building, Chu Luoluo can become a foundation building cultivator at any time. The entrance to the little secret realm is about to open. Whether it's the disciples of the sect or the scattered cultivators, there are groups of 3 or 5. After all, there are companions present, so when faced with danger, they can help each other and have a much higher chance of surviving. As for Luo Wanning, because she has suppressed her cultivation to the 5th level of Qi cultivation, no one wants to bring a drag on the oil bottle in this dangerous secret realm. Luo Wanning didn't care about this either. Anyway, from the beginning, she didn't have any intention of forming a team. These people didn't come to her, which saved her time, and she refused. When the secret realm was opened, Luo Wanning followed everyone into the realm and didn't dare to waste time. Before stepping into the secret realm, Luo Wanning instinctively touched her ear, which was disguised as an earring, and her confused heart. At this point, he should have fallen into a deep sleep, so he did not respond to her, but even so, it made her feel incredibly at ease. After entering the secret realm, I don't know if it was because of the different entry positions. This time, Luo Wanning was not transported to the place of the previous life. In her previous life, she was lucky enough to be transported to a medicine garden that no one had ever discovered before. After leaving, she used those spiritual medicines to exchange for a massive amount of contribution points in the sect. Now looking at the endless desert and looking around, the treatment in this life is vastly different from the previous one. Not to mention the elixir, looking around, there is not even a hint of green in the sight. Tsanyan's sect has explored the environment in the little secret realm countless times, and not only is it clear about the situation inside, but it is also very close. Every time a disciple enters the little secret realm, they will receive a detailed map. For cultivators during the Qi cultivation period, the little secret realm is a very suitable place for training, but there are several places that are particularly dangerous, one of which is the desert. Yes, that's right, just the desert under her feet. If unfortunately transported to the desert, do not stay in place. Find the oasis as soon as possible. Compared to the desert, it is safer there. Fortunately, at that time, Luo Wanning firmly wrote down the map to avoid such a situation. She looked in one direction and said, "If I remember correctly, the oasis should be in that direction." Walking in the desert, in addition to being careful of the sudden emergence of poisonous insects, one should also be always careful of quicksand. Once caught in it, it is not easy for the foundation building cultivator to break free, let alone the pulling force of quicksand, which can easily tear the foundation building cultivator's body in half. After walking for a period of time, Luo Wanning felt that the sand at the foot of the giant crocodile island began to become much thicker. When she stepped on it, it was initially soft and fluffy, and then she could feel a force dragging her feet, causing her body to sink. The surrounding sand would quickly wrap around her legs that had fallen into the sand. In order to avoid getting caught up in it, Luo Wanning could only keep walking, but walking on such a road would require much more physical exertion than normal walking. Coupled with the hot weather, which was no more than a cup of tea, a sense of fatigue swept through her whole body. At this point, Luo Wanning was already disheveled, but her clothes were still clean as new, and the dust blown by the wind could not touch the clothes. This clothes not only prevent fire and water from invading, but also seem to be able to cool down. If it weren't for this clothes on the way, Luo Wanning felt that she wouldn't even be able to hold on to a cup of tea. Just slowing down her pace, Luo Wanning felt like she was stuck in a swamp with every step she took. If I could fly with a sword, that would be great, Luo Wan sighed. If I could fly with a sword, it would be incredibly difficult to cross the desert in just a few minutes. Just to fly with a sword, the first step is to reach the level of the golden elixir. Otherwise, before flying for long, people will fall from the sky. Suddenly, Luo Wanning gave herself a fierce pat on the head and said, "I'm so stupid. How could I forget this?" Although she cannot fly with a sword, she has other ways. Take out the Baiyun flying magic tool from the storage space and sit on it, it is indeed much easier than before. Don't underestimate this small flying magic tool, its value is even more valuable than all the spiritual boats I've seen outside before combined, and it's something even with money can't buy. I used it all the time before, and only put it away when I was about to reach the entrance of the small secret realm. I was afraid that someone might think about it, not afraid of thieves stealing, and just afraid of thieves thinking about it. The lessons of her past life taught her a lesson, which is that wealth should not be exposed, and the hard truth is to make a fortune quietly. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Desert Distress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Desert Distress. The sky gradually darkened, but Luo Wanning still couldn't see the shadow of the oasis, which was not a good omen. Sand can flow, perhaps the map she obtained in her previous life has long been invalid, after all, anything could happen in 20 years. Luo Wanning took out her weapon, which was the silver whip. The desert at night didn't look as harmless as the desert during the day. At night, the temperature in the desert will quickly drop, and this is also the time when spirit beasts and poisonous insects are most active. Thinking of this, Luo Wanning took out 2 spirit stones to make Baiyun's speed faster. Flying in mid-air, watching the sky gradually darken, black roots wriggling like worms emerged from the ground, instantly dragging a spirit beast that had accidentally entered the area while foraging into the sand. The spirit beast didn't even have a chance to resist. Luo Wanning only heard a scream coming from below, and then returned to calm again. At this moment, she felt fortunate in her heart that she was flying in the air and temporarily safe. The spirit beast just now was clearly a carnivorous plant, with its roots scattered throughout this desert. Whenever something passes through it, it will be mercilessly dragged into the sand. However, this situation did not last long, and it should be noted that this is not the only threat in the desert. In the sky, a group of black figures seemed to have spotted her trail, flapping their wings and spreading their sharp teeth towards the direction where she was. Fortunately, Luo Wanning's divine consciousness was far more powerful than that of ordinary people, and he soon discovered something approaching him. With a flick of the whip in her hand, a bat larger than her head, completely pitch black, was thrown to the ground. The bat that was hit did not die immediately, but before it could struggle to fly again, the predator had just turned into prey. Damn it, I didn't expect a bloodthirsty bat. Why is there such a thing in the little secret realm? The most important thing is that no news has been spread. Bloodthirsty bats are a very cruel spiritual beast that feeds on fresh blood, and their favorite is the blood of cultivators. They do not act alone and often work in groups. Once encountering prey, they will relentlessly pursue it until they are completely drained before giving up. The long whip in Luo Wanning's hand kept waving, constantly throwing the bloodthirsty bat to the ground. She didn't need to kill it, just let them touch the ground, and the plant spirit beast waiting for rabbits on the ground would catch and kill the bloodthirsty bat. Fortunately, with the help of that unknown plant spirit beast, otherwise when Luo Wanning faced such a large group of bloodthirsty bats, he would really have had to rely on fate. However, even so, while she was not paying attention, Luo Wanning was still heavily sucked by these bloodthirsty bats. The saliva of bloodthirsty bats contains a toxin that can make the bitten prey feel powerless and gradually lose their resistance. At this moment, Luo Wanning was in this situation, feeling that her body's strength was gradually fading and her eyes were becoming increasingly blurred. She could only grit her teeth and persevere. If she fell asleep here, she would either be sucked into dried meat by vampire bats, or fall down and be dragged into the sand to become the nourishment of plant spirit beasts. Regardless of which one, Luo Wanning could not accept it. At this moment, she quickly pondered, and the confused heart had already fallen into a deep sleep at the moment of entering the secret realm, unable to count on it. She gritted her teeth and once again increased Baiyin's speed, trying to shake off the pursuit of the bloodthirsty bat behind her. At this moment, she realized that the intelligence from Sanyan's sect was of no use at all. The desert was far more dangerous than they had imagined. During the day, it was discovered that there were very few signs of life in this area. I had not paid much attention to it before, but now it seems that the living creatures living here were either killed by the underground plant spirit beast, and those who survived luckily died in the hands of bloodthirsty bats. Wow! At this moment, there was a sudden loud bang, and the thick sand exploded. Yellow waves surged into the sky, and the flying sand was irrigated like rain. In the sand and rain, a terrifying tree demon rose from the ground, with all its branches wriggling like worms. On its thick trunk was a face that made people dream at a glance. The wriggling branches rushed straight towards the bloodthirsty bats behind Luo Wanning, and those bloodthirsty bats also gave up chasing her after the tree demon was about to appear, launching attacks against her one after another. Countless vines formed a cage, enveloping the bloodthirsty bats. Seeing this scene, Luo Wanning dared not relax her guard and even accelerated her speed. She did not believe that the tree demon would kindly let her go after killing all the bloodthirsty bats. What she needs to do now is to take advantage of their fighting and run quickly, the farther the better. Luo Wanning was completely not afraid of wasting the spirit stone and increased the speed of Baiyun to the fastest. As she watched the figure behind her getting further and further away, her heart finally let go. It continued to fly for a long time, until the spirit stone on Baiyun's body became dim, which was a sign that the spiritual energy inside the spirit stone was completely depleted. Fortunately, there are quite a few spirit stones in the storage space, otherwise Luo Wanning would have to explain them here today. Just as she was about to take out another spirit stone to replace it, an oasis appeared in front of her. By the faint moonlight, one could even see the lush trees growing, which made Luo Wanning's movement stop. After arriving at the oasis, she didn't rush in. Although oases in the desert are safe, it is only relatively speaking that at night, no one knows what is hidden inside the oasis. Cautiously entering the oasis, her divine sense covered the surrounding area several hundred meters and did not notice any danger. Only then did Luo Wanning let go of her worries. Unexpectedly, on the first day of entering the small secret realm, I almost got myself involved. It's hard to say whether Luo Wanning could have safely left that area if it weren't for the sudden emergence of the tree demon and the bloodthirsty bat as mortal enemies. The night in the desert becomes particularly cold, in stark contrast to the hot and dry day. Luo Wanning lies on a tree, looking at the night sky above her, but her mind is thinking of other things. In the latter half of the night, the temperature continued to drop, and even though Luo Wanning was wearing clothes made of shark silk with a mysterious heart, she could still feel a hint of coolness. This temperature even gave people the illusion that this place was not a desert but a snowy mountain. Luo Wanning's gaze turned towards the other direction, and she could vaguely see figures and flames flickering there. It seems that she is not the only unlucky person who has been teleported to the desert, but it is unclear whether these people are casual cultivators or disciples of the sect. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Immortal Grass. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Immortal Grass. However, no matter who it is, Luo Wanning has no intention of finding anyone. Luo Wanning was wearing clothes made of chiffon and was extremely sensitive to temperature. She noticed that the temperature around her was gradually rising. This proves that the sky is about to light up, and the spiritual beasts and poisons that prey at night have gradually returned to their nests. Now is a good time to rush on. Leaving the oasis where I had rested for a whole night, when the first ray of sunshine fell, the warm feeling was exceptionally comfortable. However, Luo Wanning knew that the temperature would continue to rise, and within an hour, this comfort would transform into a disgust. The desert is like this, it's like a devil that won't give you any chance to relax. In addition to being careful of high-temperature dehydration, you also need to be careful of the quicksand under your feet. However, Luo Wanning sits on the white clouds, so there's no need to worry about this. After spending 2 days, what I finally saw in front of me was no longer an endless desert. At the moment she walked out of the desert, Luo Wanning couldn't help but laugh excitedly as she looked up at the sky. Heaven knows how she came these past 2 days. During the day, I sit on the white clouds to drive, and at night, I find a place to hide. At this moment, a silver-backed gorilla emerged from somewhere and rushed towards the place where Luo Wanning was without saying a word. Luo Wanning dodged the attack, swung her long whip around the arm of the silver-backed gorilla and threw it aside, hitting a tree trunk heavily before stopping. She looked at the injured silver-backed gorilla on the ground and said, "Humph, I dare not provoke those spirit beasts in the desert. There's no problem hitting you." As he spoke, he swung another whip and accurately hit the most vulnerable abdomen of the silver-backed gorilla, leaving a terrifying wound on it. Perhaps the silver-backed gorilla did not expect to fall into the hands of this seemingly frail little girl. Luo Wanning came to the body of the silver-backed gorilla and took away the pair of tusks that were more than 10 centimeters long. The fangs of the silver-backed gorilla are tough yet not easily broken. Adding them when refining a spirit sword can make the refined spirit sword also possess such characteristics. In the previous life, Luo Wanning wanted to refine her own spiritual sword. The silver-backed gorilla's fangs, which she had promised to give her, were turned around by Chiang Immortal Lord and given to Yi Ruobing, without considering her feelings at all. Later, she almost risked her life searching for the materials to refine the spirit sword. Luo Wanning put away her fangs and shook her head. Those things had already passed, not to mention she had to start over again. Those things had not yet happened, and this time she would definitely be able to rewrite her own ending. She exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, looked around, quickly determined her current position, and after a moment of contemplation, walked towards the south. If she remembers correctly, the elixir garden to which she was teleported in her previous life is located in the south, and she needs to confirm if that thing is still there. When Luo Wanning arrived, she found that the spiritual medicine here had been harvested completely, and all that could be taken away had been taken away. Even those that could not be taken away were intentionally destroyed by spiritual power. The elixir was taken by someone, as expected by Luo Wanning. After all, if she was teleported to another place, someone would definitely be teleported here on her behalf. She just didn't expect this person to be so decisive in their actions. Looking at the messy medicine garden, Luo Wanning no longer had hope, but she still came to the position in her past life memories. A spiritual medicine with a green metallic luster and a very abrupt appearance appeared in front of her. Unexpectedly not discovered. The person almost took all the spiritual medicine, but unfortunately missed the most valuable one. You should know, the entire medicinal garden combined may not be as good as a leaf of the previous spiritual medicine. Its leaves are like the moon, and its body is emerald green. It is about 3 or 4 feet long. After death, it can be taken within 10 days to revive the dead, and after 10 days, it can protect the body from decay and the soul from scattering. For living people, taking it can increase their lifespan by 1,000 years. Yes, this is the legendary immortal grass. As for why Luo Wanning knew so much in detail, it was naturally because she discovered and brought it back in her previous life. At that time, Luo Wanning did not know what it was, but only knew that this spiritual medicine was not simple. The fact was that on the day she brought the undead grass back, that Sanyan's sect blocked the news and even issued a ban on her. It wasn't until a long time later that she accidentally learned from Chiang Xianzuan's conversation that it was immortal grass. Take out the already prepared jade box, pull out the undead grass by the roots and carefully pack it into the jade box. Apart from the largest one, she also took away a few smaller ones. She didn't choose to take them away initially because they were too small. Later, she found out that undead grass, unlike other spiritual medicines, has no distinction between years. Putting away the undead grass, just as she was about to leave, she heard the voices of several people talking not far away. Who the hell is this? It's so unethical that it destroyed a good medicinal garden. Luo Wanning looked up and saw 4 or 5 people dressed in the clothing of the Imperial Beast sect walking over. It's too late to hide now, and there is a possibility of being misunderstood as the culprit for destroying the medicinal field. After experiencing the previous life of being falsely accused by Yi Ruobing, Luo Wanning herself did not realize it and is always particularly sensitive to such things. She doesn't want to be misunderstood again, even if it's just a stranger. The members of the Imperial Beast sect soon discovered the existence of Luo Wanning. Looking at her hands covered in mud, one of them frowned and said in a very unpleasant tone, "Did you do this medicine garden?" In his tone, there was an undisguised disgust. He was so selfish at a young age, didn't he know the truth that too much is better than too much? Upon hearing this, Luo Wan frowned tightly, but still said seriously, "It's not me. As soon as we arrived here, we saw this scene. Who else could there be if it weren't you? That person's attitude made me believe you, so I don't know if I thought Luo Wanning was his father's murderer." Luo Wanning was too lazy to explain to this person and looked at another person she knew, who was the youngest son of the head of the Imperial Beast sect, named Yi Jing. "Believe it or not, I just came here. When I came here, it was already like this," she said. "Who are you talking about?" Before the person could finish speaking, Yi Jing interrupted him and said, "Tong Li, stop talking. What she said is true." I saw Yi Jing bending down and reaching out to hold a destroyed spiritual medicine in his hand. Look at the broken edges of these spiritual medicines, they have started to wither. This indicates that these spiritual medicines were destroyed at least 3 days ago, he said. Upon hearing these words, the other few also went to investigate the situation. As Yi Jing had said, the destruction of these spiritual medicines had already happened a few days ago. If it were really the little girl in front of her who had destroyed all the spiritual medicines, there was no need for her to stay here. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Puppetry Masters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Puppetry Masters. Upon hearing these words, Tong Li's face changed and he realized that he might have really misunderstood Luo Wanning. He had just seen the broken ends of those elixirs. "I'm sorry," Tong Li blushed and gritted his teeth. "Since you know you're wrong, next time don't wrongly accuse someone without evidence. You will never know how much harm your words just now will cause to the wronged person." After saying these words, Luo Wanning's mood was unprecedentedly relaxed. But the accused Tong Li lowered his head without refuting, and in the end, Yi Jing came out to make amends. "Sorry, this girl. Tong Li didn't mean it, and there was a reason why he became like this. I apologize for what he just said to you." Luo Wanning didn't speak. Could a sentence with a reason be enough to falsely accuse others and use malicious language towards them? She looked up at Yi Jing, but her gaze was drawn to the white snake on his shoulder. The white snake has a snow-white body, blood-red eyes, and 2 bulging small bumps on its head. Luo Wanning knew that this should be Yi Jing's spirit beast, the white snake, with the white Jiao bloodline inside. However, it had not yet awakened. In the novel, it was because Yi Ruobing unintentionally helped the white snake awaken the white Jiao bloodline that the imperial beast sect owed her a great favor, which further piqued Yi Jing's interest. Later, Yi Ruobing was able to sign contracts with multiple divine beasts with the help of Yi Jing. After all, in the Qianyan continent, each person can only sign a contract with one spirit beast. If they already own one spirit beast and want to contract with another spirit beast, either the previous spirit beast dies or they voluntarily terminate the contract. However, either method will cause certain damage to the cultivator themselves. However, such restrictions do not apply to the disciples of the beast sect, as the beast technique they practice is passed down from ancient times and can allow them to contract with multiple spiritual beasts. Although the cultivation of these people in front of them is only during the Qi cultivation period, each of them has contracted at least 2 spirit beasts, among which there are even those with strength comparable to the foundation building period. Among them, Yi Jing, as a legitimate bloodline, cultivates the complete version of the beast control technique, which has even greater power. However, it is precisely because of this that the actions of the imperial beast sect have always been very domineering. Thinking of this, Luo Wanning does not want to entangle herself with these people too much. She needs to hurry to the next destination. The opening time of the small secret realm is only 3 months. Only by getting the things early can she feel a little more at ease. Even if there is a reason, that is not a reason why he can casually slander me. However, since he has already apologized, let's settle this matter for now. Please have a clear mind when speaking in the future, and do not slander someone's innocence with empty words and white teeth. After all, spreading rumors and running away with a broken leg is a truth that you should understand better than me, a child. After saying these words, he turned around and prepared to leave, but behind him came Yi Jing's voice, "Little girl, I'm Yi Jing. We are all disciples of the beast sect, and I see you're only one. Do you want to act with us? It's safer." "No need, we'll meet later." Luo Wanning waved his hand without looking back. After Luo Wanning walked away completely, Yi Jing's smile instantly narrowed and his face became gloomy. He looked at Tong Li behind him and said, "After you go back, go and stay at the Sigua Cliff. Without my permission, you are not allowed to come out." Upon hearing the 3 words, Sigua Cliff, Tong Li's body trembled and he whispered, "Yes, I understand." The other few people, seeing Yi Jing like this, all lowered their heads and dared not approach. After separating from Yi Jing and the others, Luo Wanning did not take Bai Yun out again. After all, this place was not as sparsely populated as the desert. In just a short while, she had already met several waves of people, all of whom she had avoided without exception. Following the route in her memory, Luo Wanning finally found what she was looking for in a very hidden place halfway up a mountain peak in the northwest direction after a day and night of hard work. She skillfully groped on the mountain, and when she touched a bump, Luo Wanning's face showed a happy smile. "I found it." Turning the mechanism, a hole appeared in front of her, just the size to allow her to pass through. In her previous life, she unintentionally activated a mechanism to enter here. After entering the cave, she narrowly escaped death, almost dying in the mechanism inside the cave, hovering on the edge of death several times. Because of this, she has a very deep impression of every institution here. The humidity inside the cave was heavy and dark, but Luo Wanning did not light the torch. In her previous life, she lit the torch and was attacked by a group of bats. Successfully evaded all the mechanisms inside the cave, and after walking for a while, the cave suddenly became clear. At the center of the cave, there was a stone table with a chess game on it, while on the other side, a young man full of bookishness held a black chess game with one hand in mid-air, sitting motionless. The skin of the young man is smooth, and his fingers feel elastic. I'm afraid no one would have thought that such a person is not a real person, but a puppet made of wood. In the previous life, Luo Wanning accidentally entered here and obtained the inheritance of the owner of this cave, a puppet master. The puppet master is the same as the alchemist Fuan master, except that the puppet master has disappeared for many years. It is said that a powerful puppet master can use a pile of wood to make the effect of a real person. Both the appearance and the touch are the same as the real person, which is very magical. Luo Wanning looked at the motionless young man in front of her and picked up a white piece from the side, landing it on the chessboard. At the moment when Bai Zi landed, the young man who had just remained motionless suddenly made a move and dropped the black Z in his hand. Because she has already had one experience, Luo Wanning doesn't need to think too much. If she wants to become a puppet master and inherit it, she must win over the young people in front of her on the chessboard. After a long time, Luo Wanning dropped the last chess piece and the young man across from him smiled, "Congratulations on passing the test. This book will be your reward." Luo Wanning took over the book, which was much thicker than the one she had received in her previous life. Is it because she didn't regret playing chess this time? After all, in her previous life, she knew nothing about Go. Here, she spent 3 days grinding with the puppet youth and won him by playing tricks. Putting away the book, Luo Wanning looked at the young man in front of her with a serious expression and said, "Are you going with me?" End of this chapter.